inevitably you are going to say the wrong thing, you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, you're going to screw up. Like, you cannot let that stop you from just trying, right? So yeah, just say I love you, say I'm thinking about you, say I'm praying for you, say I'm so sorry this happened, but also accept that you might be the one that says the wrong thing this time. And we'll learn from it and we'll all talk about it. We'll just keep having this conversation. Don't let it stop you. Do your best and try and forgive yourself for screwing it up and then try again to be better next time, right? It's okay. We will forgive you. We will all forgive each other.
Solidarity Sister. Solidarity Sister. Hello and welcome to another episode of Solidarity Sister with Kristen Wilson. Today's episode is such a treat, my friend. It is beautiful. It is vulnerable. It is going to give you some real insights on what to do if you have a friend who has lost a child. That being said, it is also the kind of episode that you might emotionally really connect with. If you are a mom who has, like Kathryn, experienced child loss, this episode might be especially heavy for you. Or it might be uplifting. There's no way of knowing. Grief is so different for each person. Kathryn is so articulate that you may find that she perfectly expresses the feelings of your own heart. You might feel like her voice represents you. And you might feel like it doesn't. It might instead give you another insight to what other moms might experience when going through this. Grief is truly so personal. My favorite quote about grief goes something along the lines of that grief really represents all that love we have for someone that no longer has a place to go. And people learn to live with that grief in different ways. So whatever your story is, if it's different, that's okay. When and if you're ready, I encourage you to share your own story so that those of us around you can better understand what your experience is like and know how we can best support you. My heart goes out to you. I cried during this interview when we did it originally. I also cried again as I was editing this interview. Some of what Kathryn Cunningham has to share with us is just so beautiful, but also it just opens your heart right up to feeling. It's an opportunity to mourn with those that mourn. So I just want you to be prepared. You might want to have some Puffs Plus, Kleenex, whatever your favorite tissue is, kind of around just in case, especially if you know you are a person who is prone to experiencing your emotions in that way. And also stay tuned to the end because I'm going to give you a little bit of definition work for just a few of the things that Kathryn talks about as it relates to our church. Be prepared to, 1, really have your heart be opened wide. There's so much to feel here. 2, to feel like you have some really tangible insights on how you might better support friends through child loss. And 3, be prepared to be inspired to seek the miracles in your own life. Kathryn's story is definitely one of heartbreak, but it is also one of joy and triumph and great faith. Her example to me has been really powerful and is helping me to seek the miracles in my own life through my own difficult road. I admire Kathryn so much. I've learned so much from her. This is really going to be a treat. I can't wait for you to learn from her too. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solidarity Sister. And I am really both excited and also I have these flutters in my heart to be able to have this conversation today. I feel like this is going to be a really sacred space to talk with my friend, Kathryn Cunningham, who their family experienced a great tragedy last year that really rocked our whole community. And most particularly their family. And Kathryn has written a book about it. And so I am honored to actually be able to host her, to be able to talk about her book, about her experiences. And I think this will really benefit our listeners who don't know what to do to best help their friends. Because I know I heard about this and I didn't know what to do either. And I wish I would have shown up better. And I'm hoping that this will help us to know when these kinds of things happen in our communities, how to do that better in the future. So, Kathryn, tell me, how are you doing today for real?
This is a question I have thought about a lot because people all want to know, like when they know something terrible has happened to you, they always ask that question, and it's not because they don't know what else to ask. Like they really want to know, like, how are you doing? They're concerned about you. And I have come to the conclusion that I am terrible all the time. And I kind of will be for the rest of my life. I'll always be like not okay. But also I'm doing well, you know, like the rest of us we're healthy, we have good goals, we're having good times, we're getting through each day. So we are happy and we are well and we are well taken care of. But we're also like awful.
I love that because I think it is so important for us to identify that we can hold more than one feeling at a time, that there is a part of this grief that is always going to be there every day, the rest of your life, but also that there can be these joyful moments. One of the things for any of our listeners, Kathryn's family does the cutest videos for the 12 days of Christmas. And her girls participate in the youth choir that my husband and I run. And they were so excited to share those with us and tell us where to go look them up. And they're fantastic. And so I'm sure it was harder this past Christmas to do those
Yeah,
videos without Dallin. I'm
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
But that you were still creating those moments with your girls, that they can still be excited and have these fun memories, but also that part of feeling terrible is there, that they exist together, that they can both be true and real at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are you listening to lately in terms of, do you listen to music, podcasts, audiobooks? What is in your ear?
When I listen to books, I'll usually listen to something from Deseret Bookshelf. I'm trying to listen to all of President Nelson's autobiography, like the his kind of 100 years. What has life taught me in 100 years book? And that's been great. And so if I listen to a book, it's probably going to be something from Deseret Bookshelf, from a general authority or someone like that. But also, not long before Dallin died, I started making a playlist of songs that made me happy. And all of a sudden, when he died, I needed that playlist. It was so interesting. I'm not like a playlist maker. I'm not like, ooh, yeah, I need to compile these songs that I love. I love music, but I haven't really been the one. My husband is usually the one like looking for new music and, ooh, have you heard this? And isn't this a neat thing? And it was such a random thing that I started to do. And so that if I'm listening to music, like if I'm driving or if I'm doing the dishes or when I'm stretching after I exercise, like that's the music I'll play, is those special songs that I found that just make me happy. And they're a big variety. Some of them are like feel good ones, some of them are ones from when I was younger, like a teenager in college, and some of them are really sad, like ones that give you that ache and kind of help me connect with the sadness that I'm feeling all the time, but they all make me happy in some kind of unique way that I find extremely helpful.
I love that you were prepared with this playlist. I think so often, and we're both women of faith, but one of the things I tell my kids is that when you're someone who's trying to live a life of faith, we're not perfect, but we're trying to do the right thing, the best of our ability, day by day. That God doesn't remove difficult things from our lives, but we can be in tune enough to be prepared in small, very, like God is in the details, these little ways that,
Mhm.
hey, there's this nudging. You might need a happy playlist. Why don't you start this happy playlist? Does it solve it? Does it bring Dallin back? No, like it's still hard, but
Mhm.
there's these little tender mercies that flow in to just support and hold us up through those hard things. And I love that you're still holding on to that playlist and you're probably still adding to it.
Yeah, yeah.
you find things that are resonating.
Hmm.
So we talk a lot in this podcast about community, and I know in your situation, the whole community knew right away, right? Like that's not how it usually goes when people kind of have a big trial that comes in their lives. Tell me a little bit about how community played a role, how community helped, how community did it make it worse? Like, what did people do that was the most helpful? What do you wish people would have known?
So, yeah, it is so interesting because Dallin, the way he died is that he fell off a slide at recess at school. And then they rushed him to the hospital and they got his heart beating again, but he really wasn't alive, you know? So it was the next day that he officially passed away. But so, like, kids were there, like, kids saw him fall. And in that sense, it was sort of an extra burden, that community, that we all experienced this as a community. Like in the hospital, I was communicating with the principal and with teachers and everything, and I was worried about those kids, you know, like the first day after he fell, they made get well cards, and by the end of the first day, it was becoming clear that he was probably not going to make it. And I messaged the principal. I'm like, you have to deliver those get well cards because they can't have those cards sitting in their classes and in their hands that they wrote for a dead kid, right? Like that's so damaging. And I was pretty concerned. Like I substituted in those classes all year, the year before, and I knew those kids, and I was very concerned about how they were experiencing it. So in some ways it was a little bit of a burden, but then it was also kind of a relief as well to not be so consumed with what I was going through that I could think about somebody else and be concerned about somebody else and have just something else to think about. And as the time went on and people reached out, people that I knew, people that I didn't know, like it meant something to me. I know not everybody is this way, but everybody who said just like, I'm so sorry and we're praying for you and I was so sad to read about this, it helped me a lot. Just every little word, every little expression of gratitude, every $2 that somebody posted on the GoFundMe with it, you know, like it was all like knowing that we were going through it together really, especially in the beginning, really helped me to feel not so alone in this thing that was so unbelievable to me. One thing that I appreciated more than I can even say was that the day, so Dallin died in the evening of February 7th, and I sent a message out to the principal and to my church leaders asking if I could please have 24 hours of no contact, just because my phone would not stop ringing, right? Like, because people wanted to help, people want to help. And I said, I need 24 hours. I just need 24 hours where the phone is silent, or I don't have to answer a message. I don't have to answer a call. And it was dead. Like immediately it went silent. Nobody called. Like even the people who brought dinner over that night, like they just brought dinner. They didn't call ahead. They just showed up and with the food and stayed as they didn't stay. Like they just, everyone really respected that request that I made. And I appreciated it so much. Just having that one day, it gave me the kind of rejuvenation I needed to be able to like get up the day after and start taking care of all the terrible business that there is to take care of when somebody dies.
Love that you were able to articulate that and to ask for that space. I mean, I can't even imagine. The thing is millions of kids go to school every day and play on the playground. Like in your wildest imagination as a mom, you might sometimes consider that it's possible you'll lose a child before adulthood, but what comes to your mind is not a playground accident. It's not falling off the slide. And that must just be have been so difficult to wrap your mind around.
Yeah. Like
Because
I couldn't believe it at first, right? Like you can't, like you just can't believe it. I got the call and I was like, they say he's unresponsive, but like that can't be actually what's going on, right? Like that it's
yes,
yeah.
I'm sure I would have felt the same way because you're like, this can't be real. This and all these other kids on the playground. And I can see that, like how so many of those things that happen for us are really like they're dual-edged, you know? Again, it's a blessing that all the people were there to be supportive, but I can see how it would feel like a burden to worry about the other kids on the playground.
Yeah.
Witness that. And I didn't really ever know Dallin. I know your girls. I love your
Mhm.
girls. But Dallin wasn't quite old enough for the choir, and that was like the place where I've really connected with your kids. But all the feedback I've heard has been so positive that he was always such like just a really nice little kid, that he was a happy little kid, that he was a funny little kid, like that he brought a lot of joy everywhere he went.
Yeah.
And that he, is missed. Do you have any favorite memories about Dallin, or anything that you just really love when you think about him? Where is the joy for you in remembering him?
Gosh, that's actually kind of a hard question, right? Because he's everywhere. Tim and I were actually, gosh, we were in the temple yesterday, and we were sitting just in that place where you sit and just feeling of all the places I can feel close to down, like the temple is where I feel closest to him in the celestial room. And it's always hard. It's nice to go and feel close to him, but then when it's time to leave, it just feels so unfair, right? Like how can I leave now? Like, I think they could just let us stay for like a week or two because that's really what I want. But I was just sitting there and I told my husband, like, I just want Dallin to come sit in my lap and read him a book, like that's just those kind of memories, just those everyday memories. Just he always wanted to sit with us, and sometimes I wanted some space, and now I wish that every time I'd let him sit with me, just sit on my lap and read him a book and watch him just be kind of a jerk to his sisters like little kids are. Tell me some stupid joke that he thought was so funny. He thought he was so funny, and he was a funny kid, but like no kid is as funny as they think they are. Tell me a joke and wait for me to like explode with laughter because he was convinced he was just so funny. I don't know. That every time he met someone, it would take an extra like 5 minutes to get through that introduction because he would like drop to the floor and hit both his feet behind his head and like crawl around on the floor the way he used to do. He thought he was so clever. And I don't know, just all those things, those everyday things that's also like the really hard part is that like there's not just one thing where you're like, oh man, it would be nice if Dallin were here. It's just everything, right? Like we were a family and now he's just not here. And yeah, it's just so hard. Like it's not one thing, it's not one time. It's every moment, like getting ready in the morning. Oh, like nobody's in elementary school. I would drive by the junior high that they're building, and I had hoped so much that it would be done in time for Dallin to go there because then everybody could walk to school and it's going to be done in time. But now he's not here. It doesn't matter anymore. Oh, God. And every happy memory is so sad. Like we were talking about before, like every happy memory is so sad at the same time. It's really hard, especially like we've just gotten through all the holidays and the new year, and then February was the 1 year anniversary of everything, and just really like got the feeling like my heart is not big enough for everything I'm required to feel now. Just when I would pray, just like, God, Heavenly Father, make my heart big enough because I can't hold it all. But yeah, like Tim found a video the other day of just some Christmas Eve when we were trying to put Dallin to bed, and he was so excited, and we were singing him a song and giving him hugs and whatever, and we thought we got to the end of the song and one last hug, and then the last thing on the video is he goes, Mom. You could tell like, oh, this is gonna be a while. Just yeah, just every moment like that just makes me so so happy to remember that we had it, and so so sad that we won't have those for a really long time.
I can see that. I appreciate you sharing that with me. I think part of why I started this podcast is honestly now I'm going to tear up, but we had these two tragedies in this community last year where back to back we lost Dallin as a community and Jaden. And my daughter was friends with Jaden, and I attended those two funerals back to back. And I felt this helplessness.
Mm.
Like, how do I show up better for these families? And it's not really your job to teach me, right? I do believe, and I interviewed someone earlier on an earlier episode who had lost a daughter to cancer, and we talked a little bit about the circles of grief and that this idea that you should be not comforting anyone because you're the center of the grief. You know, maybe you're girls, right? Like maybe you're girls, you're the mom, but like you shouldn't be comforting outwards. You should always turn to the person who's 1 degree away for comfort, kind of a thing, or further degrees away. So you shouldn't be comforting the community. We should be comforting you. And I do believe that because it isn't your job to heal everyone else. It is your job to heal yourself within your family. And then for everyone to kind of lean in, the closer people are, the less requirement they have to worry about anyone but themselves.
Mhm.
And as I'm coming from the outside where I know you girls pretty well, relatively well, at least from our weekly interactions, and I love them and they're just so fun. And Rose is obsessed with your youngest daughter. She actually tells people they're best friends. So I don't know if you knew that, but looking where I knew I was kind of on the outside, but not feeling like I knew how. How do I show up better? What do I do differently? And I think the thing that I'm learning is part of it is just holding space to say,
Mm.
tell me about Dallin. I want to know, like making that space. And there is a place for the meals and the GoFundMe's and the things like that. And I'm sure that those were all helpful and appreciated.
Mhm.
But sometimes it's just having space to say it's okay to be terrible and it's okay to also be grateful at the same time and
Mhm.
have it be wonderful and awful and all the things. Is there anything else that you think that we can be doing better? How can we better support you?
I think what you said is so important, like not feeling awkward about talking about the person. Because I think in the past, people have thought like, oh, it will be painful for them to talk about it. Like even if they were comfortable talking about the person, they were worried that, oh, that's going to make them sad. Like we're sad all the time anyway, right? Like there's not going to be anything we can avoid talking about that's not going to make me sad. Like I'm so aware always that he's gone, right? I'm gonna be sad about it. It's like we need to stop being afraid to be sad and accept that it's just part of this life and it's part of becoming like God, of our task of becoming like God. Just feel that sadness and not be afraid of it. So yeah, like giving permission to say their name, right? And to talk about them, to have them still be a part of our lives, like that is a huge, huge gift, right? Like to just tell stories about him without it being such a big deal. Like, no, he's a part of my family. Like, let's just tell a story about him because I thought of this story about him. Or, yeah, like talk about him like he's just one more of my kids because he is one more of my kids. I have a thing that my dad is a doctor, he's a pediatrician, and he treats kids that have severe disabilities and severe medical conditions. So he's quite familiar with the experience of his patients passing away. And one of his patients' moms, he was meeting for the first time, and said, how many kids do you have? And she said, I have 4 kids and 3 are living. And he said, oh, I really like that. And I have borrowed that from her, that like that's when I'm meeting people for the first time now, that's what I'm going to say. And I think that's going to be sort of my part of like, you have permission to talk about my kid, and I would love your permission also to talk about my kid. We'll just talk about him like he's a part of our family because he is. So that is incredibly useful, and like that space you're talking about is like so helpful and healing. But also, especially someone like you're a part of my community, but you are a little bit more peripheral because we're not next door neighbors, and I don't run into you at school events and things like that. But you guys being a part of helping my girls just continue to have lives and experiences, that is enormously helpful. Like they're leaders at church, their friends at school, just anybody that helps them feel like life is still something I can enjoy. And my life is going to go forward and I don't have to feel guilty about that. That's what we're meant for. That's what we're meant to be doing. Like anybody who is a part of that is doing a tremendous service for me because there is really only so much I can handle right now. Like even normal things that I used to do. My youngest has ADHD, my oldest has just been diagnosed with autism, and they need a lot of help, but I can't give it to them all the time, Like I'm their piano teacher and we haven't had regular lessons in forever. I'm just dropping the ball all over the place. And just the people who give them support and are part of their lives moving forward, it is so helpful and just lifts this burden knowing that even in parenting, even in motherhood, I'm not by myself. Like you're there reminding them that music is something that will help them, that will enrich their lives, and they're gonna need that. They're musical kids. Music will be a part of their journey and of their healing when things start to hit them down the road that they didn't expect. When these feelings come back up and they realize, oh my gosh, like my brother dying was never gonna leave me. It's gonna come back and come back and come back and be a part of me. Like they're gonna need that music. They're gonna need music to heal them and to teach them and to give them a safe place to experience all the emotions they're gonna feel. And you're part of reinforcing that. And I thank you for your service and your sacrifice. It means so much to me. And anybody who does that, anybody who is even just a part of somebody else's life, if even it's not the parent, like just even if you don't feel like you're ministering to that person specifically, like just being a part of their life or their kid's life or whatever, like it is helpful. I will tell you one thing that was not helpful, and I hope nobody's feelings get hurt. There were a couple of people who came to me when Dallin was still in the hospital. They both had kids that they had brought with them, and I was trying to gently prepare them for the fact that this was really bad, that he might not get better, like that they need. And I was thinking specifically, like, you've got to get your kids ready. They're here. You've brought them. They need to be ready for really bad news. And they said, no, I know he's going to get better. I can feel it. You just have to believe in, like, Jesus will save him. I just know that Jesus is going to save him. And that was not helpful because they didn't know. Like, I appreciate, and they were trying to be helpful. Like, and I have no bad feelings towards these people. And it's good to have faith, and it's good to have faith in Jesus. And Jesus will save us all, right? Like, that is the eternal truth and the ultimate story. But when I'm telling you things are bad, I don't have the energy to argue with you about it or to explain my motivation or whatever. You telling me that I'm crazy is not helpful. Like, Jesus is going to save him. Well, you don't actually know that, right? Like, you don't know that. You're not in there with the doctors. You didn't see, like, I just need you to believe me for right now. Like, could you please believe me? And then, like, prepare your kids for the fact that, like, they might not get the news that they want to hear. Like, please don't. Like, it was so exhausting. Just it didn't. It only happened a couple of times, and again, like, everybody gets through, and that might have just been their way of getting through it, but it wasn't helpful to me. What I needed was for them to believe me. Like, don't tell me I'm crazy and hysterical. Like, listen to what I'm saying and take whatever you're going to take from it. So that was something that was in creating, we're talking about community, like people who are grieving, people who are going through hard things, like they don't need you to make predictions for them because we don't know, like bad stuff happens, but they do need you to be there and to love them and to stop telling them that they're hysterical and crazy.
I can see how that would not be helpful. And, and it could have been well-intentioned.
Oh, it definitely was. But both of these people are close to my family. They love my family. They love my kids. They were trying to strengthen me and like help me get through it. Like they were 100% trying to help.
But I appreciate you sharing that because that's part of what we're here for is learning like what didn't help. Not to like badmouth anyone, but to be able to say, can we learn from this?
Hmm.
Can we learn from this? And so when these kinds of things happen in the future, because inevitably all of these life experiences, it might not be the exact same thing, but a similar situation comes up that we can show up better
Hmm.
because we've just learned how to do it better. Because like no one teaches you these things. Like really, do you know what I mean? Like where is like I mean, yeah, they try and do like second step in school, and my kids love to sing the empathy song because they think it's funny, but like, like to really be able to know how is the best way, what is the best way for us to show up for each other. And I think I'm finding it's just having these conversations. I learned so much about how to do it better next time.
Hmm. Well, and I was actually talking to some of the young women at church about this. We had a whole lesson about dying and whatever. And one of the things I felt really strongly that I should say was that, like, when you have someone near you go through something and you want to reach out, but you don't know what to do, like, just accept from the outset that you're going to do something wrong. Inevitably, you are going to say the wrong thing. You're going to hurt somebody's feelings. You're going to screw up. Like, you cannot let that stop you from just trying, right? So, yeah, just say I love you, say I'm thinking about you, say I'm praying for you, say I'm so sorry this happened, but also accept that you might be the one that says the wrong thing this time. And we'll learn from it and we'll all talk about it. We'll just keep having this conversation. Don't let it stop you. Do your best and try and forgive yourself for screwing it up and then try again to be better next time, right? It's okay. We will forgive you. We will all forgive each other. I don't hold anything against those ladies who were trying to make me feel better. I don't hold anything against anybody who said the wrong thing. I have had very few experiences with people saying insensitive things, actually. I've been incredibly, incredibly lucky. Everyone has been so sensitive and kind and helpful, right? Like doing things that are actually helpful, like relieving my burdens and helping my kids and just helping us get through like the practical daily necessities of things. But just try it. Like don't let your fears keep you from trying, right? Like it's okay. Show up in the way that you can and accept that you will screw it up and forgive yourself and learn and move on. Like we all will. We're all doing it.
I love that. I think that's so encouraging. And I think that that's better than just being silent. I think that's better than saying nothing and pretending it didn't happen or avoiding the person or not, showing up. If you're showing up in a way that this isn't about to get the tea and to like have, whatever, but if you're showing up with love for a family, you're showing up with a heart that is in the right place.
Yeah.
Even if you say the wrong thing, it's going to be okay. And they're going to recognize that you are showing up, that you're trying, that I love that you're kind of giving permission to people. And I
Yeah.
think one thing that I really have appreciated learning in this conversation is the value of supporting the other children in a
Hmm.
family with child loss. That almost one of the best things that we could do is to show up for the other siblings
Hmm.
because it does help carry the burdens of the mom who the fact that you haven't done piano lessons and I mean like that could just happen to me without losing a child. I think that's normal mom life. I just want
Yeah.
to say, like, like I drop the balls all the time. I do. Like I think that is normal mom life, but when people do reach out and help support the other children,
Mhm.
that just must be more helpful than a lot of other things. And your girls, you're right, they will always have music. They are very talented musically. And if I get the timing of something wrong, Abigail will always tell me how it was, which I appreciate because I sight read most of the time as the accompanist. I should not. I should practice. I don't think about it. I choose the music and then I'll show up and I'll be shocked that it changed keys and now we're in like several flats or sharps or and we're like playing. I'm playing it while they're singing it and I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I not see this coming? I picked this song and then I'll get the rhythm wrong and Abigail will be like, right here, measure 45. And I'll be like, you are right. You are right. Thank you for that. So I love it. And then meanwhile, Rose will come and sit by Margaret and they're hanging out and they're all like, It's fun. It's fun to have them. And I wondered the week that Dallin died if they would come to choir, and they did. And
Yeah,
they,
I told them all, like, you don't have to go to anything. You have a good couple of weeks where you don't have to do anything you don't feel like you want to do. And they wanted to. And I think that's part of like helping the siblings, right? Like some kids when they experience this kind of thing will need some tenderness, right? They'll have anxiety that they need helping finding their way through. They'll need like some kind of kid gloves. And other kids, like I think especially initially, my kids needed just to be normal, right?
Mhm.
They wanted to do those normal things. They wanted to sing with the choir. They Margaret went back to church the first week. Like she just wanted to be there. She just wanted to do those normal things. They want to be with their friends. Like kids aren't meant to feel sad all the time. They can't do it. So yeah, and that's another thing, like with especially with kids, I feel like to kind of be observant, right? Like let them sort of guide the script, how you're going to handle it. If they are very anxious, if they're have suddenly like worries, if they're suddenly very angry, like you're going to handle it differently from the kids who like really just need things to be normal for a little while.
And kudos to you as the mom for recognizing what your kids needed and giving them the space to kind of figure it out and which way worked for them. I
Yeah.
mean, as I see them, they appear happy and healthy and they are doing well. And I'm sure they still miss Dallin. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's still part of their everyday, but they are doing well. So you're doing a good job, Mama.
Eh, thanks. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think it might be one of those things that comes down the road, but we'll just keep doing it. We'll just keep watching each other and trying to be there for each other and deal with the things as they come.
But I think the fact that you are willing to make space for yourself to be sad and to be happy, you are modeling that for them. And that creates a safety for them because really, when they don't feel allowed to be sad or they don't feel allowed to be happy, either one, because it can go either way, right? It could be the survivor's guilt kind of a I can't be
Mm-hmm.
happy, or it can be, I can't be sad because they just have to be grateful for everything. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's when those emotions really get stored to come up later. But when
Right.
they're allowed to feel all of it, whenever it comes up,
Mm-hmm.
it helps them to process better. And you're
Yeah.
doing a great job modeling that.
Thanks. It was really interesting. We were talking about something the other day. I can't remember something that was hard or something that like having a hard time getting motivated to do something. And we're talking about, oh, it could be because of this, could be because of that. And Abigail said, well, there's always the big sad. I was like, oh, that's exactly what it is. It's the big sad. Anything that goes wrong from now until forever, like it might just be the big sad.
I love that. And it is. That is the big sad. It's
Yeah.
the big sad of the family.
I
I was
was glad that she was able to kind of articulate that a little bit. Like, keep doing that, babe. Like,
to be able to recognize that for
yeah,
herself. I
yeah.
think that's fantastic. So tell me a little bit more. I was able to read the first chapter and the last chapter of your book, and now I can't wait for it to come out so I can read the middle. And that's the part I'm looking forward to too, but getting the whole thing. But what motivated you to write this book now? What do you hope to be able to share and express? What do what are your hopes about this book and what readers will get out of it?
So we were in the hospital February 6th and February 7th, and on the evening of February 7th, Dallin passed away. And, you know, the night of the 6th, we got hardly any sleep. They gave us a Ronald McDonald room, and so we got a couple of hours, but really we did not sleep very much. And then, of course, we got home later than everything always takes longer than you think it will. So we got home later than we thought we would on the 7th, and we're sad and not sleeping well. But at 4 o'clock in the morning on the 8th, I woke up just with my head full of things that I had to write down. I started writing about 10 years ago when Tim was in grad school and we were living in Monterey and in a two-bedroom apartment, and I knew that I would need to have something to make me feel like a person and not just a machine built to save money and get everybody through whatever they were going through. And so I started writing. And so for 10 years, I've been writing sort of with this idea that, maybe someday I could make this pay. Maybe someday I could get a book published. Maybe someday I could be an author and not just a mom who likes to write stuff. And 4 o'clock in the morning, the day after my son died, my head was just full of things I had to write down. So I got up and everybody else was asleep. And I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And I wrote the talk that I would give at his funeral. And I just wrote it all right then. I didn't change it afterwards. It came to me, and that's what it was. And as soon as I had it written down, I knew that my next job was to write a book. That we had experienced, the talk I gave at his funeral was all about how God sends us miracles when horrible things happen. How President Nelson, prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he gave a talk one time where he said that as saints, as people have taken upon us the name of Christ, we have a right and a responsibility to seek and expect miracles. And so that was all of what I talked about, like how just because we didn't get the miracle that we wanted doesn't mean that there were no miracles to be found. Like the miracles were all around us. And I knew that there were too many of them to just talk about in this talk. And I needed to write this book. And it was just one of those moments where everything that you've been doing in your whole life comes together and God says, this is what it was for. This is why. You thought you were writing for this one thing and that you would write this one type of book, but that's not what it was about. The whole time I was making you ready to write this book at this time so that when this happened, you wouldn't have to improve your skills and get to know people in the industry and start you've done all those things and now you're ready. So write it. This is what you were meant to do all along. And so, so I wrote it really quickly. It was done probably 2 months after Dallin died. I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And it's not long. It's only like 100 pages long, but I wanted it to be short because it really focuses on those 2 days, like just those 2 days, and what it was like to go through and how the Lord blessed us with miracles to get through it. But also, if someone is grieving, or if you need to be there for someone who's grieving in the moment, you don't have time or energy to read a whole big book. Like, you really can't. People were so kind. And actually, one of the things that people gave me that I appreciate the most was books, but I haven't been able to read most of them. I just don't have the energy, and especially not at the beginning. Goodness, like the last thing I couldn't get through a whole day. Like, I couldn't get through a whole day. I would eventually, sometime I would have to like just go in my room and close my eyes. I certainly didn't have energy to read a book about grieving or anything really. And so I knew I wanted to be short. I knew I wanted to be really like laser focused on just that specific experience and my impressions that I had that were so clear in the moment, but that over time start to fade away, that you don't remember them quite the same when time has gone by. But yeah, that's really what it's about. And that's why I wrote it, because I knew like that was the why of everything I had been doing for 10 years. So that when that happened, I would be ready to write the book that God always meant for me to write. And yeah, it was done. And then I just submitted it to a couple of publishers. And I was really glad one of them picked it up, because I knew that if I didn't get picked up by a publisher, I would have to self-publish it. And that sounded so exhausting. Couldn't even barely bear it. So I'm very grateful for Cedar Fort Publishing picking up the book and helping me package it. And we'll see, it should be coming out pretty soon. And I'll give you that information as soon as I have it. But the Lord prepared me in so many ways to meet this moment, right? When Dallin died, it became very clear so many experiences that I had been having my whole life that had taught me other things and helped me through other experiences, but really were meant to help me through this moment, this experience, so that when I got right here to this exact moment, I would be ready. That doesn't mean it wasn't hard. It doesn't mean I'm grateful. not grateful for it. But it does mean like we're family still, right? We're we're whole. I didn't lose my faith. I didn't lose my husband. There are marriages that fall apart when things like this happen because it's just so painful. And that didn't happen to us. Like I felt that everything God could possibly have done for us, he did for us. And I just wanted to witness of that like when we are looking for it, the miracles are so big. There's so many that God is trying so hard to help us. But we need help. We need help to see it. It's not always super obvious, like, oh, wait, that was a miracle. Oh, wait, like that was him trying to help me. It's not always obvious. Like, we need those eyes to see. We need to be looking for it or we're going to miss it. And I just wanted to be a witness for that and to just, I don't know. It occurred to me when I finished that it might make people feel bad, like me talking about the different ways that I've been blessed, and I didn't want that to happen. I don't want anyone to feel bad because they didn't get help the same way that I got help, or they feel like they didn't receive preparation the way I received preparation. Like I don't want that, but I do feel a responsibility to witness. Like he loves you, like he loves us so much. Like being separated from Dallin just for this little while, I have a new awareness of like the pain he must be going through being separated from all of us all the time. Like so many of his kids that he just doesn't get to be around, that he doesn't get to be close to the way that he wants us. That when we let him into our lives, it's a gift for us for sure, but it's a gift for him. It's really the gift he wants the most. He just wants to be close to us the way we want to be close to our loved ones that have gone on, that have passed away. And I think that's just my witness. Like we can be close to him. He can send us miracles. He has help waiting for us. And if we look for it, we're gonna find it.
I love everything you shared, honestly. And I remember at the funeral being blown away by that talk that I didn't realize, had been this download for you the morning after Dallin passed away. But just, I don't remember attending a funeral where I left with so much hope. That's not normally, I mean, there's always like a feeling of hope. Not always. Many funerals, there is still a feeling of hope that's there. But I felt like you just delivered this most powerful sermon to all of us that anyone who was there was privileged to have been able to be there. And it's really sweet to me to be able to hear the backstory that you woke up and that this was the message. And I remember all the things you talked about. I remember talking about looking for the miracles and being reminded for that and how we find what we're looking for.
Mm,
And when you're training your mind to look for those miracles, I think number one, you see them more. But
mhm,
number two, I think there are more of them. I think the things that we show gratitude for, and that, there's a little saying where focus goes, energy flows, or whatever, that kind of a thing. But I think there are more of them to be had. So I'm super excited to read this book and for other people to have that. And I think for them to be able to say, you said, I don't want people to feel bad if they didn't have the same kind of support I did or whatever,
mhm.
but to be hopeful that that kind of support can still come for them moving forward, regardless
Yeah,
of what's happened in your past.
yeah,
Always change the dynamics of how we're showing up in life and what's going on moving forward.
yeah, yeah.
And I love what you shared about feeling so prepared for this time and to share this book. And I think that it will be the first book.
Yeah.
I suspect there are more books in you.
Yeah, I have a list.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think Dallin is cheering you on.
Yeah, that's funny. That was something else I I felt in the temple yesterday when we were there. Like, I haven't ever thought about this before, but I just remember feeling like I want him to be proud of me, which is so funny to say, right? He was 8 years old. Usually think about, oh, I really want my 8-year-old to be proud of me. Like, I'm the parent, like, I'm the one who's proud of him, right? But yeah, I really was like, oh, Dallin, I really hope I can make you proud. So I'm proud of him.
I think it goes both ways. I suspect he's already proud of you right now. I suspect he's been there watching along the way, that he was there at the funeral, that he's been there, you know, he's still aware. I'm honored that I've been able to talk to you and learn from you. And I just think you have so much to offer. And I hope that I can show up better because of what I've learned.
Thank you. I really appreciate the chance to be here as well.
So there's one question that I like to ask all of my guests. If you could have a billboard that is this like powerful billboard because everyone in the whole world is going to see the message on it, what message do you think the world needs?
So there's that story in the Bible of Jairus, whose daughter is very sick. He goes to Jesus and he asks him to heal him, and Jesus says, yeah, I'll go with you. And they go, and the crowd is pressing, and Jesus stops to heal the woman with the issue of blood. And it's just, I had never read it this way before, but reading it after Dallin died, I could feel this like mounting anxiety, like from Jairus, like, hurry up. Like, I told you she's dying. Like, what are we doing? And like, just wanting to punch everybody in the crowd away, like, get out of our way. We have to go. And then they finally get there, and the servants come out and say, don't bother the master. She's died already. And just that feeling of like, no, I'm too late. Like, I'm too late. I did everything I could do, and I'm still too late. And Jesus says to him, he says, fear not, only believe. And I think that's what I would want on that billboard. That's like the thing that we all need, whatever, like, it's what I needed, it's what Jairus needed. And he got his little girl healed right away, right? And I won't see Dallin for quite a while, but it is still the message, and it is still the promise. Like, this death that we're talking about, this happened, this is temporary. So fear not, only believe. Like, all these things we're going through, all this stuff, like, this is temporary. I have promised you, I have power over life and death, and you have each other. Fear not, only believe.
Well, that's powerful. I feel like this was just what I needed today. So thank you. I hope that our listeners are also feeling that. And we're going to hold this episode for a minute until we know that the book is out, so that we can put a link in the show notes so that people know where to go to buy your book, because I'm sure after they listen to this, that will be the next natural step. So record it and have an Audible type version as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing the audiobook. I haven't quite, that's my next step actually, is I gotta jump through those hoops and start recording it. So I'm excited to do that.
That'll be awesome. So it'll be in your own voice.
Yeah, yeah,
Better. I love when authors read their own books.
me too, especially this kind of a book.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us. And we just send all of our love to you and your family.
Thank you, Kristen. We feel it all the time. We feel it all the time, the support of all the many, many people who have shown up for us, even if it's just in spirit and they haven't told us about it. Like, we feel it.
I'm so glad. Thank you. And thank you for joining us on another episode of Solidarity Sister. Thank you so much for being a listener here. I hope that you took away so much from this episode as I did. Also, I want to make sure that you know that if you check the show notes, you're going to be able to find a link to buy Kathryn's book, and also some information about her book launch if you happen to be anywhere in the neighborhood of Stansbury Park, Utah, which is about 30 miles west of Salt Lake City. I also wanted to just give you a little bit of background for those of you who are not members of my faith, and Kathryn and I share the same faith, that our official name is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We have prophets and apostles just like Jesus did when he ministered on the earth. So our prophet currently is President Russell M. Nelson. He has been alive for basically a century and has so much wisdom. He was a renowned heart surgeon first. There's a lot to learn from him. So that is the book she was talking about. Deseret Book is a company that is definitely affiliated towards our church and offers lots of church books, but it also carries books that a regular bookstore would carry, children's books and the like. So the Deseret Bookshelf app is what Kathryn was talking about there. And the temple. The temple is something that's really special and sacred in our faith. It is a place where we can go and be sealed to our spouse for what we consider time in all eternity, so that when we die, our family relationships don't end, but that we can be together forever. And you can go back and visit the temple. And Kathryn talked about being in the temple and that is the place where she feels closest to Dallin. It is a peaceful place where you really can feel close to God there. And in this case, Kathryn appreciates feeling close to Dallin there. So I hope that you will buy Kathryn's book. I hope that you will share this episode with anyone you think that could use it. Maybe even share it on your own social media. I hope that you will, if you're finding value here, that you will subscribe so that episodes automatically download, and that you would consider leaving a review. When you leave a review, it lets the algorithm know that more people should be given the opportunity to check out this podcast. So if it is adding value to you and you think it could add value to others, please go in, leave a review, subscribe, and share it. That would mean a lot to me. This is a labor of love, and I love being able to share it. Most importantly, thank you for being part of the Solidarity Sister community. We needed you. Solidarity Sister. Solidarity.